The desperate search intensifying tonight for a convicted murderer who escaped from a prison in Pennsylvania.
The stakes only getting higher.
If he is not actively surrendering, deadly force is authorized.
Hundreds of officers, dogs, drones, and helicopters continue to search.
If you see this individual, do not approach him.
Fear gripping the community.
Franco says he provided information to police after the murder.
Right now I have anxiety because of this. And I was getting anxious again this week. I even told my friends I'm not sleeping well.
Well, we believe the security measures we had in place were sufficient. They've proven otherwise. And we move quickly to enhance our security measures.
Neighbors are reminded to keep their homes and vehicles locked, and many say they will not live in fear.
We're guarded. We're not in fear, but we're also going to be prepared if he does encounter us.
Like a scene from an action movie, a killer human crab walking up a wall to escape prison.
Throw one foot up, get some pressure against the wall. Then we're going to throw that foot up, right? Not bad, not bad. Yeah. So
I made it like 6 inches. Surveillance video of Daniel Cavalcante's escape from jail is being seen across America.
This guy was very determined.
He made it look easy. This exercise video, whatever his workout routine is, hardcore.
Parkour!
Today I want to talk about the Daniel Cavalcante case. If you're anything like me and a bunch of other people, you were following this case from when he escaped to the manhunt to literally every twist and turn. And as soon as the situation sort of ended, I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what he did in Brazil. I wanted to know what he did with his girlfriend, what led up to it, how did he get here, how did he escape, what happened, everything, because I'm nosy. I just want to talk. I just want to talk. Can we talk? Let's talk. Please, can we talk? Daniel is from Brazil, and he grew up in this very rural, very poor part of Brazil. It's like the northern state in Brazil. When he was a kid, he worked as a farmhand, like a laborer, and he became very familiar with the jungle and the forest and like living off the grid and things like that, which would come in handy when he was on the run. Why am I talking like this? Daniel had a rough childhood. According to his attorneys in his prior case, they said that he grew up in an abusive household, which led to him using alcohol and drugs from a young age. And then they said he got involved with gangs. So Daniel was friends with this guy. Okay, this guy is called Walter Jr. Moreira dos Reis, and he would end up dying. And who killed him? Daniel. Daniel killed his friend. He killed his friend because of money. Walter owed Daniel money because Daniel did some repairs on his car and he owed him money. So there was this cafe that they would go to a lot together. And so one day they're at this cafe. This is in 2017, November. And then all of a sudden, these gunshots ring out, and the owner said he thought it was fireworks.
And he says, I thought it was fireworks. It never crossed my mind it was gunfire. It was only when one of my employees ran back inside and said that guy killed his friend. I couldn't believe it until I went outside and saw for myself.
Turns out it was Daniel shooting his friend 6 times at close range, and then he stole his friend's cell phone, and then he got in a car and drove off. From there, he went on the run, okay? Recurring theme with him, he likes to go on the run. While Daniel was on the run in Brazil, he was in the forest and stuff hiding, and there was a warrant issued for him. Someone dropped the ball when it came to the warrant because the local police knew about this warrant, but it wasn't entered into the national system. And something awful would result from this mistake. So this is a quote from a lawyer in Brazil who's familiar with the situation. He said, they did not put the warrant in the national system of Brazil, so only the local police were aware. The federal police were not alerted, and that opened the door for Cavalcante to escape. That's the part that hurts me. Because Daniel's information wasn't in this national database, he soon realized that he could use his own passport with his own name to travel because there wasn't any ban on him. So he ends up using his passport to go from Brazil on a plane. He went to Puerto Rico. From Puerto Rico, he went to Florida. And that's how he got into the U.S. legally. Then, after he gets to the U.S., he ends up in Pennsylvania. It's in Pennsylvania that he meets his girlfriend that, oh, what does he do to her? He kills her too, because he's an asshole. When Danilo gets to Pennsylvania, his neighbor is Deborah Brandow. That would end up being the girlfriend that he kills. According to Deborah's sister, Sarah, Danilo was really helpful and friendly and nice in the beginning. Deborah had young kids, and Danilo was nice to her and helpful to her and helps her with her kids. And so they end up having this sort of relationships. Then they start dating, and that's how it all began. But according to Sarah, she noticed, and it wasn't just Sarah, it was also Danilo's roommate, he was very quiet, very observant. That's something that came up a lot. They said he's quiet and observant, like he's always scoping the scene, and reserved and cold.
Super shy, like really quiet. He will drink his beers on the weekend, make barbecue, and working a lot. Super quiet guy, really shy. Wouldn't talk much. He wouldn't start a conversation.
According to Sarah, she felt like he was cold with the kids, not very like affectionate and nice and friendly, but just cold. But then over time, it got worse because Deborah would tell her sister Sarah that, when he drinks, he becomes a different person. He becomes jealous and possessive and controlling and threatening. And he would say things like, if you ever cheated on me, I would do the worst. And he would also like check her phone and go through her social media, like very that kind of guy. And she said it happened when he was drinking, but over the about a year and a half, 2 years that they were dating, he got worse over time. Now it's 2020 and Deborah and Danilo, they live together and they have this horrible argument, which results in neighbors calling the cops on them, reporting a disturbance. When the cops arrive, Danilo's already gone because he likes to flee. And Deborah's there and she's bleeding from her mouth. And she tells the cops that they got into an argument and Danilo bit her lip. And not only that, but was chasing her around outside of the apartment, her and her kids. So the situation was crazy. So they end up getting a warrant out for him for assault. And Danilo, through his sister, tells police he's going to turn himself in, but he doesn't. Then, several months later, in December of 2020, Deborah contacts the police herself this time, and she tells them that Danilo tried to attack her basically with a knife, and she ends up getting an order of protection against him. The sad thing here is that this order of protection was temporary, pending a hearing, but Deborah did not go to the hearing, and as a result of Deborah not going to the hearing, the order was dismissed, and so she no longer had this order of protection. And that was dismissed in March of 2021. And literally a month later is when Danilo would end up killing Deborah. Not only did he kill her, but the son of a bitch did it in front of her kids. So Deborah had a 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. And what ended up happening was that Deborah was in her home with her kids outside in the front lawn when, according to the daughter, Danilo showed up unexpectedly, went to Deborah, pulled her hair, threw her on the ground, threatened to kill her, opened this bag he had with him that had 2 knives in them that he had used at the party at his house. He had a barbecue at his house earlier that day and was using those knives to cut meat. And he brought them in this bag with him, gets on top of Deborah and starts stabbing her like 38 times in front of her kids. And it's awful. So this is according to the 7-year-old. She says that, she was screaming, her and her brother, for Danilo to stop. Danilo threw a rock at them to shut them up because the kids were screaming. And then the mom, through all of this, told them to run and get help. So the 7-year-old, she runs to the neighbors and tells the neighbor calls 911. At this point, after he stabbed her 38 times, Danilo does what? Runs away again like the little bitch that he is. He runs away. And so then the neighbor comes in and is giving life-saving measures while the police come. The police come, they take Deborah to the hospital. Unfortunately, she dies later that day, which is so tragic. It's crazy. It was just a month after that she didn't go to the hearing, but when Danilo ran away, he had help from his friends. Okay, he had 2 friends, Michael Scahill and Francisco Lima, and they not only helped him escape, they literally washed blood off of his hands. They took his dirty clothes and disposed it for him. They gave him clean clothes. They put gas in his car, and they told him to disappear. Okay, they didn't go to cops even after they found out that Deborah died at his hands. They still didn't go to cops. They would end up testifying though against him uh, for immunity. Self-serving motherfuckers. Anyway, sorry, I feel like I'm just like very. I'm judging. I'm judging. I am. Okay. Who like washes blood off of someone's hand after they kill their girlfriend? Like, what the? Anyway, so Danilo, he's in the car with the gas and he's driving on the 95 freeway, or I think it's called, they say I-95. In California, we say the 95, the 405, the, no one cares. The point is, he's driving down this freeway. He's trying to get to Mexico, so that he can go to Brazil, because apparently, I found this out when I was doing research on this, is that Brazil is much more lenient with murder, like sentences. Like, they don't have the death penalty and they don't have life sentences there. And so I guess now that he got himself caught up in another murder in the States, he'd rather go to Brazil and take his chances over there where he wouldn't get a life sentence. Apparently he would get like 40 years max, and with good behavior he could have gotten out in 13, according to this attorney in Brazil. He does get caught though. By the time he makes it to Virginia, one of the troopers who's in the area has already been notified about him and is looking out for him, sees him, stops him, and Danilo gets arrested. He's charged with first-degree murder, aggravated assault, a bunch of other things, and 2 years later, he goes to trial. I guess he pled not guilty. He didn't like deny doing it, but he didn't want that first degree murder charge. His lawyer was trying to get him a lesser charge because the prosecution, they were saying this was premeditated, right? Like, he came, he had the weapons with him, and this is what he was planning to do. His attorney said, no, this was like heat of the moment, passion thing. And that was sort of what his trial was about. When Danilo was arrested and they got like a photo lineup and showed it to the 7-year-old daughter, she said, quote, "That's the guy that killed my mom. Please get him and put him in prison." During the trial, it was revealed that Deborah found out about Danilo's murder in Brazil. Not only did she find out about the murder, but when she found out that he had hacked into her Instagram a day before she was killed, she threatened to tell police about him being a fugitive and illegal and all this stuff. And the next day, when Danilo was at the barbecue at his home, he said to the people there was a party, he said he has to go get his woman, packed the knives that he was cutting meat with in the bag, went to her home, and did what he did. According to his attorney, he was like, listen, he had a bad childhood. They had a toxic relationship. You know, he only brought the knife because usually when he threatens her with a knife, she listens to him. And he was going to just wave the knife and tell her, don't tell the cops. But he went crazy and snapped. And then afterwards, he apologized. He felt bad. He wrote a letter to her kids that he killed their mom in front of them and said, I'm sorry. And the prosecution was like, that's all fake. He's just trying to save his ass. This was premeditated. He's cold-blooded and he's dangerous and he needs to be put in jail for life. So the jury, they deliberate for 15 minutes and they come back with guilty, first degree. And in this county, Chester County, a first-degree murder charge carries a life sentence, mandatory. So he knew already off top, as they say, that he was going to spend his life in prison. A week after he was sentenced to life in prison, he crab walked his way to freedom. So this is August 31st now, and this is when that infamous video where he crab walks up the walls, and if you can look at the video, you'll see there's a bulge in his back. That is where he had a towel. This is the towel that helped him when he was going through the barbed wire. So he crab walked 2 stories high. He got to the roof. Using the towel he stuffed at the back of his pants, he used that to go through the barbed wire. Then he ran across the roof, scaled another fence, went through more barbed wire, and then he was free. Guess what? It turns out just a few months before Danilo escaped, another inmate at the same prison escaped in the same way before Danilo. So he copied this guy. His name is Igor bolt. And he did the same thing where he crab walked and he went up through the barbed wire and everything like that. The only difference was the tower officer, who was supposed to be looking and monitoring the situation, noticed right away, immediately alerted everyone, and Igor was found 5 minutes after he escaped. And only half a mile away from the prison, he was already at home near the prison. But they caught him and brought him back. And then a few months later, Danilo escapes the exact same way. In this situation, the tower officer did not notice or report that he had escaped. The way they found out that Danilo had escaped was actually an hour later when they came back from the yard because they were like playing basketball in the yard, and then they did the count and they realized he was missing, and then they looked in different places and they realized, oh shit, he's not here, and then that's when they were like, red team go. It was like they put the public siren. They were alerting 911 and the authorities and saying, like, this guy, he's dangerous. He killed someone in Brazil and he killed his ex-girlfriend in front of her kids, and now he's escaped. Danilo escaped at 8:50 a.m. and the prison didn't realize he was missing until like 9:45 a.m. And then it wasn't until 10 a.m. that the public siren and the public were alerted and the authorities and stuff like that. So Danilo had over an hour head start. So at this point, the defecation hit the ventilation, if you know what I mean. So one of the first things that authorities do is notify Deborah's family, because her sister testified and her sister has custody of her kids, and they were wondering if he was going to try to get revenge and go to them. So they move them to a safe location and they're under surveillance and they have police with them 24/7. In the meantime, the public is alerted and everyone is told to stay away, stay vigilant, and call 911 if they see anything. The public is warned to stay away from Danilo, but they're also warning people that might want to help Danilo. Don't do it. Don't help him because you're going to get in trouble. And turns out that someone helped him. We know at least one thing that police said was that it appears his sister, remember I told you about her, she's the one who told police back then, oh, he's going to turn himself in. Danilo's sister, who was also in the U.S. illegally, she overstayed her visa. She was not being cooperative with police, and they said basically that, they deported her because she wasn't helping them and she wasn't supposed to be here in the first place. So during this time, he's spotted several times, but he's always one step ahead of law enforcement. And whenever they see him and they think they know where he's at and they get there, he's not there. Danilo stole a lot of things, clothing, different items, and so he was using that again to disguise himself. But the thing about it was he was never that far, at least in the beginning. He stayed in like the thick brush that was in the surrounding area. Remember, he had a history and knowledge of living in the forest, living off grid, and so that's where he stayed. And he tended to sleep during the day and move at night, and sometimes he wouldn't move at all. Like in the beginning, he didn't move at all just because he wanted to like scope the scene and throw everyone off. Danilo broke into a home, which was about a 45-minute walk from the prison, and around that time as well, Ryan Drummond, who lives in the area, calls 911 to report Danilo breaking in.
What would you do if an escaped murderer showed up in your house? You're about to hear a one-of-a-kind tale about one such sighting last Friday evening. Ryan Drummond joins me now. Ryan, thank you for being here. Paint the picture.
Friday, we were, even before we went to bed, we were all out on the deck, enjoying our Friday. We were locking up the house because we knew that there was a prisoner on the loose, and we had this old French door. I really struggled to get it locked, and my daughter was very concerned. I said, don't worry, he's probably nowhere near here. And of course, why would he ever come to this door? So we end up going to sleep. I hear a noise at around 11:30. I saw that the door was slightly ajar. That's when my stomach dropped. I ran down the hallway to make sure all my kids were accounted for. And when I came back, I could start to hear, a little bit of shuffling. So I grabbed any kind of weapon that I could. And ironically, the only thing that I had there was a picture frame of my wife and kids. And when I grabbed it, I did like a Frisbee motion. Should I go over the head? And in that moment, I realized how ridiculous this is. And decided to flick the light switch on and off 3 or 4 times. And then he flicked the light switch back at me from the kitchen. That was kind of the acute moment of terror. I turned to my wife. I said, he's downstairs. Call 911 right now. And in that moment, I saw him walk out of the kitchen into the living room, not even running, just kind of walking methodically and he went out that French door. And by that time, I was on the phone with the police, and they arrived moments later.
The creepy part is that his 9-year-old daughter expressed concern that it wouldn't lock. And then that is the door that Danilo came in through. Okay, what is that saying? From the mouths of babes or something? Children's, the truths? You know what I mean? And so Ryan believes that Danilo was nearby and overheard this conversation, and that's why he targeted them. He was basically surviving off of drinking stream water, and at one point, he had a watermelon that he found at a farm that he took and used his head to break it open and ate that. And then when he was doing poopies, he was covering them with leaves to hide his tracks. And it seems like he's backtracking. He's backtracking a couple times, and authorities are wondering if he's just trying to throw them off or if he's losing his bearings and he's not sure where he is. And at the same time, whenever they see sightings of him, they are now creating a perimeter. There's a lot of officers, like hundreds of officers at this point, and they're creating a perimeter. The thing is, okay, Danilo manages to escape right from under their noses again. So Danilo's been seen around in this area known as Longwood Gardens, and he ends up going to this farm. When he goes to the farm, he sees that there's like dairy vans that are parked outside. He looks in and he notices that one of the vans has a key in the ignition. He goes in there and it's unlocked. He goes in the van and there's a quarter tank of gas, and he's like, all right, I'm taking it. So he drives this van and he gets out of the perimeter right from under their noses. And they see him again, sightings of him on surveillance cameras, and they start to realize, wait, if he is in this area, then he is not in the perimeter where we formed around where he was last seen. So he exited right from under our noses. He ends up driving 20 miles north to Phoenixville, where he knows people, and he leaves the truck when he runs out of gas, and then he's then seen on surveillance, like doorbell camera, at the home of his coworkers, where he went there and he tried to ask them for help. They didn't answer, they didn't help him. Instead, they gave the footage to police and let them know. At this point, he looks clean shaven, he's wearing a hoodie, and he almost looks like he's smiling. The public began to criticize the police. They were like, listen, you have one job. Okay, you guys are supposed to keep him in prison. You couldn't do that. Now he escaped. There's 400 of you. You guys have all this equipment, canines, helicopters, all this stuff. And he goes right from under your noses and he's dangerous and all this. It ends up being this thing. Police are doing press conferences. They're giving updates and the days are adding up.
Police acknowledging today they no longer have a defined search area after he slipped through their perimeter and changed his appearance.
Unfortunately, we don't have a containment area right now, so that's another another concern and another challenge.
Then it starts to become a mental game for Danilo. The police have a helicopter and it is circling the area of brush where they think he could be, and it's basically playing a recording of his mom speaking in Portuguese, begging him to turn himself in.
And now a helicopter flying overhead is playing the voice of his mother.
Tonight, the desperate plea from the mother of convicted murderer Daniel Cavalcante. Recorded in his native Portuguese and played over helicopter loudspeakers, urging the escaped inmate to give up.
At one point, Danilo's gone 3 days without food, and he considers surrendering, but he decides, no, I'm going to steal stuff. And he ends up stealing something major, which is a rifle, a 22 caliber rifle. So the way that it happened, he almost got shot. So the way that it happened is he noticed a home where the garage was open. And so he goes in there looking for stuff, and that's when he notices the rifle is leaning against the wall. Well, while he's going in there and stealing it, the homeowner realizes that he's there. The homeowner has a pistol and starts firing at Danilo.
The homeowner reportedly fired 7 times at Cavalcante before he was able to escape.
Also last night, police say a pair of work boots were stolen from Jim Barnes's porch.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's where they were. They were right there on the back porch, and sure enough, they were missing.
The homeowner missed, damn it. He missed him. And so now it's like, oh my God, he's armed and dangerous. So after that happened, police, they're like, okay, we're doing a press conference. You guys, now situation's worse.
At 10:10 p.m., A call was received from a resident on Coventryville Road indicating a short Hispanic male, no shirt, and wearing dark pants, had entered his garage and that he grabbed a .22 rifle that was leaning in the corner of the garage. The homeowner drew a pistol and fired at Cavalcante as he fled with the rifle. Cavalcante is considered armed and extremely dangerous. He is now armed with a .22 caliber rifle with a scope and flashlight mounted on it. We considered him desperate. We considered him dangerous. All this does is confirm for us that he has a weapon. This most recent incident is a reminder that he will take advantage of any opportunity to obtain items he needs. I know this is an extremely stressful time for the community. We are doing everything possible to bring this to a successful resolution as quickly as possible.
If you guys were mad at us before, you're really going to be pissed because we still haven't caught him, and now he stole a rifle. So everyone, lock your doors, like hide your kids, hide your wife.
Hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
The days are adding up. It's like, first it was like, oh, over the weekend he's still missing. Then it's like a week, 10 days, and people are freaking out. Some people are saying, you know what, if the cops can't do it, we're going to do it.
So he's out of the perimeter now, and he can go anywhere. He could just keep hopping in and out of different cars and moving on his way.
If it's still like this in a couple of days, I know people around here aren't going to sit by and let it be like that. They might start going out and walking around on their own and try to find them.
We're out looking for the fugitive.
We're looking for you. We gonna find you. I'm letting you know now, so you can run and tell that, homeboy.
The cops are like, please don't do that. And they're like, well, please find him. The main officer, the police chief who was giving all the updates, he started getting defensive because at one point, one of the reporters are like, can you explain to us like what went wrong? Like, how did you guys drop the ball? And he's like, I don't think anything went wrong. The terrain is really difficult and we are dealing with, weather and brush, and this guy is like really good at like camping or whatever and living off grid. And so we're doing the best we can with what we have, but trust us, like we are going to get him. We are playing the long game now. And so people are like, dude, how long is this guy going to be missing? Because now we're coming up on 2 weeks where he's on the run and now he has this rifle. There was even one instance where a police officer saw him in the bush and tried to follow him but ended up losing him. And so the police really wanted to stress to the public that like this terrain is really difficult. It's thick, it's hard to see. Just a few steps past us and somebody is completely invisible.
Now, the area surrounding the search perimeter is full of dense woods and lots of cornfields. And as you can see, it doesn't take long for me to completely disappear into the corn.
During all this, when all this is going on, okay, the public is getting more and more upset and scared, and so there is a fall guy, okay? They come out and they announce that the fall guy is the tower officer, who was an 18-year veteran who was supposed to be watching the area where Cavalcante escaped from, and they explained that they did this internal investigation, and they have a policy in the prison where they're not supposed to have cell phones in the tower, okay, because it's distracting. This 18-year veteran officer had his cell phone in the tower with him, and so apparently maybe he was scrolling or on his phone doing something, okay, and not noticing that Danilo had escaped. So they fired him. September 13. This is day 14, 2 weeks since Danilo escaped. At 1 a.m. in the morning, they have this DEA plane that can detect thermal imaging, and they catch like, a body, a person in the woods. But the problem was in this forest, the problem was that there was lightning. So the weather was really bad. And so the plane had to back off. But even though the plane backed off, unbeknownst to Danilo, they began to surround him on foot. And by 8 a.m., he was surrounded, he was close, and he didn't realize it. So they took him by surprise. When they finally went to get Danilo, he realized that he was surrounded and he still tried to escape. So he started crawling under the brush, and they said he had the rifle with him, and that's when they sicked the dog on him, the famous dog Yoda.
Yoda, the canine who subdued escaped prisoner Daniel Cavalcante, is America's new hero.
The search for Daniel Cavalcante is over. The subject is now in custody.
I'm proud to announce the subject is in custody. Reading, subject is in custody.
The subject is in custody.
Yes!
Our nightmare is finally over and the good guys won.
who they released. This was Border Patrol canine officer. They released him, and he was trained to bite and hold, which means, you know, he'll bite you, but then he also, it was a picture, I don't know, I thought it was cute because I have a German Shepherd where the dog was like holding him down, and I was like, oh, except he like viciously bit him and held him down, but it was still cute.
Cavalcante is now inmate number QP8931 at the Phoenix Maximum Security Prison in Pennsylvania. His cell measures 12 feet by 6, like this. The previous highest profile prisoner was Bill Cosby.
From there was another controversy that came out, which was, one was, why did they kill him? And then I don't know why I laughed then, but I don't like him. I don't care. And then the other one was the fact that when he was captured, a bunch of the officers, there were 20 to 25 officers who were part of the group that actually captured him. They took a picture with him. So some people were like, why would they take a picture with him? That's unprofessional. That's inhumane. And then other people were like, why is he alive? They should have killed him. And so it was like two opposite ends of the spectrum. But the police chief, he defended their actions. He's like, we were authorized to use force, and we were going to use force if we felt it was necessary.
Yes, he had the firearm with him. Yes, he was a threat. He did not have an opportunity. I believe he was taken by surprise. And I believe the canine played a large role in him not being able to utilize that firearm. It is our last choice, our last preference to use lethal force.
34 cops in combat gear with 2 canines involved in the hunt posed for a class photo. There's Cavalcante in the center, like a trophy.
As for the photograph, he said, you know, they were looking for him. I'm proud of their work.
I'm not bothered at all by the fact that they took a photograph with him in custody. Again, they're proud of their work. They're not doing anything to demean him or harm him in any way there. They've handled him well since he was taken into custody. I'm proud of them and their work.
So that's how that turned out. And so now they were like, don't worry, he's not going to escape now. They put him in a maximum security facility. And then there's been some fallout at the prison where he escaped, because apparently this was something they knew about over a year ago. There was this hearing that happened in the community, and the officials said that we've done like not an audit, but they did sort of like an investigation on this prison, and they found many flaws, and they recommended changes to be made in this prison that were not made. And now look what happened. And so the public members of the community were there. They were upset. And the interim warden that they had there, he came out and he said, listen, I need money. We need money for new barbed wire, more cameras, more staff. We want different uniforms that are more visible. We need to have more changes to the way we do things. And so we need money for that. And they approved it. And so we'll see, you know, what happens with that, and if someone else is going to crab walk out of there. It was also revealed that Danilo was about to carjack someone.
His end game was ultimately to use that rifle to carjack an individual. He wanted to get a vehicle. He wanted to head north to Canada or possibly make his way to Puerto Rico. And he said that was going to happen within the next 24 hours.
They also found out that they were closer than they even knew. Told them, like, listen, you guys were so close and you almost caught me like so many times. There were times where you like almost stepped on me and were just a few feet away. But again, that brush is so thick that he was able to just sit there. And then he said there were times where he didn't move at all, like for days, and he just stayed in one spot, and that it was wearing on him. And that's why he felt like he needed to carjack someone. So then, as a result of all of this, some reporters, they went to Brazil to see, you know, his backstory. And that's when they spoke to the grandmother of his friend that he shot, Walter. And she was like, you know, he needs to pay for what he did. She kept calling him the bad thing. She wouldn't even use his name. He was like, the bad thing needs to pay. Just him getting arrested is not enough.
She says we are not relieved because he was only arrested. He deserves worse than that.
So I think she wants him dead. Now that he's been captured, the Brazilian authorities, remember, because they don't have a life sentence, they're going to like sentence him in absentia. And they said that if, you know, he has to serve the life sentence in the US, which he does, they're fine with that because he would get a more lenient sentence in Brazil. And so that's sort of like, I guess, done. Now he's in a maximum security facility, and his next hearing is September 27th, which is in a few days. That is basically the backstory and the story of Danilo Cavalcante, what he did, what happened. I would love to know what you guys think, especially about like law enforcement's role in it. Do you think they dropped the ball and could have done better? Or do you think it was like a bunch of really crappy circumstances? I think the fact that he escaped in the first place is insane, but, you know, especially because someone did the exact same thing before, and then you would think that that same place, there would be a lot more heat on that area, and then he goes and does the same thing a couple months later and gets away with it for way longer. It's like that is the mind-blowing part. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.